Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. The main character, after dying in his previous life, he wakes up inside of Bleach. Later, he becomes part of Squad Zero. After retiring from Squad Zero, he teaches Aizen how he changed Aizen.
Which was something Xian expected. There were more than a dozen people in the last class, and most of them were just people joining in the fun. They came to this class out of gossip. Although they didn't say it, who was Xian Yi? It can be said that he is a veteran, and he can see through the minds of these young students at a glance. Since gossip is human nature, he did not cause any trouble for these students. Naturally, because he pointed out that many students were not interested in calligraphy class in the previous class. Many students were so ashamed that they would not be able to come to this class again. But there are still a few familiar faces, and they are all people who are really interested in calligraphy. In addition, Aizen Sasuke is also on the list. Xian Yi did not deliberately take care of Aizen just because he had coached Aizen in the public training ground of Kaido class. He treated everyone equally and continued to talk about calligraphy. Calligraphy requires not only theoretical knowledge, but also hands-on practice and more practice. Practice is also important. He stepped forward again and instructed the students one by one on how to write. Soon another class ended. Xian Yi told the students that get out of class was over, and he was about to take away his teaching tools and leave the classroom. However, he did not expect that just as he left, a student hurriedly followed him and came behind him. Xian Yi turned around and looked at the young man who followed him. "Sao Suk, what's the matter?" Sao Suk paused with an embarrassed look on his face. "I have some questions that I would like to ask Mr. Zionai." Xian Yi's eyes narrowed, and he looked at Sasuke seriously. "Let me guess. This question has nothing to do with calligraphy." Sao Suk didn't answer, but his expression betrayed him. Yes, the question he wanted to ask had nothing to do with calligraphy. Earlier during the spring break, when his classmates went to rest or go home to visit their relatives, as he continued to practice in the public training ground of the ghost class, he unexpectedly met Xian Yi, the calligraphy class teacher. Although Xian Yi taught a calligraphy class, he did answer his questions. After returning, he kept thinking, following what Zionai said, try to study the power contained in the words. Of course, there is no gain. But the power of the true name, and the powerful power contained in the words, complete chanting or abandonment of chanting, will lead to this, is the reason why ghosts have different powers. So is it possible to make some attempts based on these relationships? Although Sao Suk claims to have average qualifications, this is actually a modest statement. He is very smart. During the entrance examination, his spiritual power has reached the 6th level. Spiritual power is divided into 9 levels according to the level. Level 1 is the weakest, and level 9 is the strongest level that has been detected so far, corresponding to the spiritual power of the captain level. 6th level, when one's spiritual power is placed in the Gotai 13, there is absolutely no problem in serving as a chief officer, not to mention becoming a vice captain, and it is also a front seat. And the 6th level spiritual power at the time of enrollment, it does not mean that Aizen only has 6th level spiritual power. He is very young, and he can feel that his spiritual power is increasing all the time. The spiritual power when he entered school was just his state at that time. As he learned more about the Shinigami, with more and more knowledge, his spiritual power is growing faster and faster. He himself doesn't know what level his spiritual power has reached now. But Sao Suk also knows that the most important change in his body is it's better not to tell anyone. Therefore, he has always been humble to others and has not tried to skip a grade. Instead, he is honestly preparing to finish 6 years at Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy. This move actually made many Zhenyang teachers feel a little bit uncomfortable. Disappointed. After all, not all new students can have sixth-level spiritual power, and it often takes many years to develop one. But on the other hand, spiritual power is spiritual power. Talent is talent, and strong spiritual power does not mean that you can learn to chop well. Fist away ghosts and become a truly powerful Shinigami. Spiritual power is just the foundation for becoming a Shinigami. At a young age, Syaosyuk learned to hide himself early. And secretly, he integrated many knowledge of the Shinigami and learned it has reached an extremely exquisite level. Many students of Mao may not be able to learn to abandon chanting and perform Kaido. Only those with extremely high Kaido talent can learn it. If the Kaido talent is not enough, even if they become the deputy captain, they can use Kaido. Is also a pile of Zai-Ti. Yes, it is Renji Abarai. Talent is something that cannot be done well. But Syaosyuk is not the same. With his powerful spiritual power, he has long mastered the skill of abandoning chanting. At first, he only knew how to chant completely or abandon chanting, but after learning some secrets from Xian Yi, he came up with the idea of whether he could choose a part of the ghost path chant to chant. That is half chanting. This can shorten the time of full chanting and prevent the power of Kaido from becoming too weak. Syaosyuk tried decisively and finally succeeded. This made him even more amazed by the power contained in language. The doubts in my heart became more and more intense. But Mao's teacher couldn't answer this question, and because of what Zion said, it seemed that this was not knowledge that he could understand at the moment. However, the knowledge was right in front of him, but the feeling of not being able to get the answer was indescribable. Finally, he thought of someone. That is Xian Yi. Is it possible to try to find the answer from teacher Xian Yi? It can only be said that Syaosyuk restrained himself at that time. But in the subsequent practice process, the suppressed desire for knowledge became active again. Perhaps it is precisely because of this strong desire for knowledge that he will make various attempts in the future, and then violate many of Soul Society's prohibitions, and completely walk towards another path that is opposed to Soul Society. Talk about your problems. Zayanai did not reprimand Syaosyuk, but gave him a chance. Hearing this, Syaosyuk was immediately overjoyed. He recounted all his attempts during this period. He learned that Syaosyuk was in a situation where no one taught him. Under such circumstances, he actually figured out the technique of Kaido half-chanting on his own. Zayanai couldn't help but sigh that he was indeed a genius. Generally, at Zhenu Spiritual Arts Academy, such techniques as Kaido half-chanting are not taught. After all, for these students, to put it bluntly, it is not easy to successfully cast the ghost path. The ghost path half-chant is a deeper and subtle skill. It requires the selection and simplicity of the incantations chanted by the ghost path. Not every spell can be used. What is omitted is not required for every incantation. Only by choosing the appropriate concise incantation can the power of the ghost path not be too weak, and the time of chanting can be saved. Chapter 15. It seems you lied to me in the first place, Zainai said to Syaoji. Syaoji's expression changed slightly, teacher Zainai. Xianyi said, you told me at that time that your qualifications were average, so you had to practice hard before you could join the Gotai 13 team. But through some of the words I told you, you understood the skills of ghost path and half-chanting. This does not mean that you have average aptitude, but you are clearly a genius. Syaosyuk heard this and quickly wanted to explain, saying that he just discovered this skill by chance and was not a genius. Zayanai interrupted him. Syaosyuk, you don't have to be humble. Although modesty is a virtue, but sometimes, as a young man, you have to show your edge appropriately. I looked through your files when I had nothing to do. When you entered school, your spiritual power reached the 6th level, which is already the level of a high-ranking officer of the Gotai 13. During your time in school, although your various starting grades were not first, they were among the best. Of course, now it seems that you have something to hide. At least for the Kaido course, if you can do half chanting, you can achieve abandonment of chanting. At this level, if you put in your best efforts, you can definitely get the first place in the exam. Xian Yi's words made Sayori's expression change slightly. He didn't expect that Xian Yi would see through the fact that he was hiding his own affairs. This is the corridor outside the classroom of Zhenyang's Spiritual Arts Academy. Xian Yi, after talking so much with Sao Xiuk, it naturally aroused the goodwill of some students. Zainai didn't wait for Sao Xiuk to collect his emotions and said to Sao Xiuk, "Let's talk in another place. This place doesn't seem to be suitable to answer your questions." After Sao Xiuk came to his senses, his expression regained its composure. But in my heart, I can't help but become more curious and surprised about Xian Yi. Zainai took Sasuke all the way to his teacher's dormitory area. Stepping into Zainai's residence, Sao Xiuk's eyes couldn't help but flicker. Is this the teacher's residence? Zainai is a calligraphy teacher, but after Sao Xiuk came here, he didn't see any calligraphy or painting. Xian Yi just put the tools, brushes, and other things used in the previous class casually. Placed in this dormitory, there are more fishing rods, tea sets, and even unfinished drinks. This teacher, in terms of life, is too out of tune. It is completely inconsistent with the image of the calligraphy class teacher, full of artistic style, in Sao Xiuk's imagination. Right. Zainai answered Sao Xiuk's question. I just moved here not long ago. After all, I just came to Mao today. It's not a big place, but it's more than enough for me to live alone. Zainai is a person who doesn't have much pursuit. As long as he has enough food, clothing, housing, and transportation, he can accept it. Saoji made it clear. Zainai continued. I won't say any more words, continue. That's it for answering Sasuke's question. Zainai started with the topic of ghost chanting, which was a continuation of the previous topic. Ghost chanting is an extremely superb skill. Generally speaking, Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy will not teach this kind of skill. The only ones with skills are the ghost Taoists. They mainly focus on ghost Tao and are all masters of ghost Tao. They have just focused on studying this technique. In addition to half chanting, there are also techniques such as multiple chanting. If you are interested, you can learn about it yourself later. Even if Mao doesn't teach these things, when you become a real Shinigami, you can still take the initiative to learn as a Shinigami. In the final analysis, what Mao teaches is just some basic abilities of the Shinigami. The purpose is to help you quickly transform from a soul with spiritual power to a Shinigami. More knowledge will have to be studied by yourself after you become a Shinigami. Study. Xian Yi chatted a lot and talked a lot. Perhaps it was because the person in front of him was Sao Xiuk Aizen when he was a boy. Xian Yi was very optimistic about him, so he inevitably talked a bit too much. So, Yao Xiuk also didn't dislike Xian Yi's words. Instead, he listened carefully to Zainai's many warnings. These warnings were the teachers of Zhenyang's Spiritual Arts Academy and would never tell him. After Zainai told him about the ghost chanting, Sao Xiuk's most important question came out. Teacher Xian Yi, what is your real name? You said ghost way singing is a process of chanting the true name of the ghost. By chanting its true name, the power contained in the name is awakened. So can we completely abandon chanting the name and then display the ghost? Zainai didn't expect Sao Xiuk to throw his warning away so quickly. When they last met, Zainai told Sao Xiuk that this was not a secret that Mao's students like him could know. The previous answers to 1 or 2 are already considered exceptions. So, should we make an exception again? Zayanai fell into thinking. If he didn't answer, with Aizen Syaosyuk's temperament, he would probably find the answer by himself. Right. In order to pursue the truth, this is a person who can do whatever it takes. Thoughts flashed. Zayanai said to Soyu, "The answer is no. You seem to have forgotten what I said to you last time. Nameless things are powerless. Only by calling the true name can you leverage that power. You can understand the true name as the Zampakuto of the god of death, but this sword does not belong to an individual, but to all the gods of death. It exists in this world, and when you call it, you can borrow it. Strength, the power that is engraved on the world." Syaosyuk's eyes flickered slightly. The nature of the ghost path was beyond his expectation. After Syaosyuk thought for a while, he asked Zayanai again, "Teacher Zayanai, who is this power? What's engraved on it? Is it naturally occurring, or man-made?" Zayanai is gone. He answered this question immediately, but fell into deep thought. After thinking, he said to Sozyu, "This question involves some truths about the world. I can't tell you, but I can tell you, if you are enough being so powerful, you can also create your own ghost path. You can engrave the ghost path you created on the world, and then let others perform it through chanting. The reason why ghost paths have so many types today is not that they existed from the beginning, but that they were continuously created by strong people over the long years." Chapter 16. Create your own ghost path. Syaosyuk murmured to himself. He never knew that ghost ways could be created by oneself. The ghost ways taught by Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy are not the limits of ghost ways. As long as there is enough genius, you can create his own Kaido. Although Syaosyuk is not weak in Kaido talent at this time, he has mastered full chanting, abandoned chanting, and even discovered the Kaido half-chant through independent research, but he is still far away from creating a Kaido on his own. There is still a long distance. But after learning about this, he still has one more goal. A goal worthy of his advancement. Syaosyuk is a genius. Even if he has always hidden himself from those around him, he had a harmonious relationship with his classmates. But in his heart, he always felt that he was incompatible with the surrounding environment. When those classmates worked hard to practice Zhang Quan and Zhang Gui, he easily learned these skills, and soon after he almost mastered them. It didn't seem that difficult for him to become a Shinigami. This made him feel a little boring about Mao's study career. Until he met Xian Yi. He learned from Xian Yi after learning a few things. Syaosyuk felt that things had become interesting. It turned out that the knowledge taught by Zhenu Spiritual Arts Academy was only the foundation of the Shinigami. This world was far more mysterious than he imagined. To put it simply, ordinary people practice ghost ways just to learn how to master ghost ways, but they don't know the origin of ghost ways, the essence of ghost ways, and they don't even think about creating their own ghost ways. Syaosyuk still doesn't know what a real name is who created Kidu, but here in Zayanai, he did have a new goal. In Zayanai's dormitory, he talked a lot with Syaosyuk again, naturally, just like last time, although he also revealed some secrets, such as that the ghost path is a group of forces engraved on the world, but he did not tell Syaosyuk who carved it, whether it was innate or acquired. Syaosyuk had a delicate mind and naturally sensed it. Xian Yi's attitude did not ask too much, because the previous question itself was a bit abrupt. But he really wanted to know some secrets about the world. He wanted to explore the truth of the world. Xian Yi understood Zun Yi's attitude. What Yao Suk was thinking, he looked at Suk with a serious look and said, "Suk, you seem to have a strong desire for knowledge." Sao Suk was a little uncomfortable being stared at by Xian Yi, but he still answered Xian Yi's question. Maybe it's because I like to think randomly, but if possible, I really want to find out the answers behind many questions. Did you know that sometimes knowing too much is not a good thing? Xian Yi's gaze suddenly became sharp. Cao Xiuk felt Xian Yi's gaze and asked in confusion, Teacher Xian Yi, is it wrong just to find the answer to the question? Xianai didn't answer. Cao Xiuk was keenly aware of something wrong for the first time. Why exactly? Why is it wrong to simply seek answers? Why is knowing more not a good thing? What is hidden behind this world? For the young Cao Xiuk, he wanted to understand everything. But he was also quite self-aware. At least now, he seemed not qualified to know everything, because he not even the god of death. Therefore, if you want to figure everything out, the first thing you need to do is to make yourself stronger and become the god of death. Thank you for clarifying my doubts, Teacher Xianai. Cao Xiuk came back to his senses and thanked Xianai seriously. Xianai accepted Cao Xiuk's thanks happily. After staring at Cao Xiuk for a while, he said, if you encounter any problems that you don't understand in the future, you can come to me for advice first. Don't try to explore the truth alone. If you don't know the seriousness of some things and explore them rashly, you may put yourself in a dangerous situation. Cao Xiuk thought he heard wrongly. He was stunned for a while before he realized what was happening. He quickly said to Xianai, okay, Teacher Xianai, thank you. He thanked Xianai again. After that, Cao Xiuk was kicked out of his dormitory by Xianai and returned to the teaching area of Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy to mingle with his classmates. Also after this day, Xianai, the relationship between Yi and Soyaruk, has undergone some subtle changes. He is no longer simply Cao Xiuk's calligraphy teacher. Outside of class, he will also try to answer some of Cao Xiuk's questions. Cao Xiuk is a person who is very curious about everything, and his curiosity reaches an extreme level. Basically, every few days, he will come to visit Xian Yi and ask Xian Yi some questions he encountered during his cultivation. Regarding these issues, Xianai did not hesitate to give some advice. However, over time, he found that he was harassed by Cao Xiuk too frequently. He was indeed very interested in Aizen Cao Xiuk. After all, he was one of the original novels. The famous and popular villain in the movie, Ihwach Bach. In terms of personality charm, you have to look at Sasuke Aizen. It is rare to meet Sasuke Aizen when he was a teenager. Xianai doesn't mind giving him some pointers to see if he can guide Aizen to another path. After all, judging from Aizen Sasuke's pursuit in the original work, Xianai's own pursuit is actually similar. They are both to explore the truth of the world. The only difference is that in discovering the world after the truth, Aizen developed some ambitions. However, he came to ask himself every few days, should he still support himself in old age? You know, he only has 2 classes a month at Mao. This once every few days, I'm not Cao Xiuk's tutor. Cao Xiuk, don't you think you have too many questions? On this day, Xianai said to him in a subtle tone, after answering some of the problems Cao Xiuk had encountered in life. Cao Xiuk looked a little embarrassed. Indeed, he had too many problems during this period. It was rare for him to meet a teacher who could answer his questions, so he didn't want to miss it. However, he ignored the fact that teacher Xianyi was just his calligraphy class teacher. Teacher Xianai, I'm sorry, it's my fault. Cao Xiuk apologized to Xianai and couldn't help but lower his head. Chapter 17. It's okay now that you know you're wrong. Xian, he said to Xiaoji angrily. Although I said that if you have any questions, you can come to me for advice, but you have too many questions. I am just your calligraphy teacher, not your beheading teacher, Kaido teacher. If you have questions in these areas, why don't you ask them for advice? Xianai's words were very straightforward, and he reprimanded Cao Xiuk. Sao Suk lowered his head and did not refute. But in his heart, he was talking to himself in a voice that only he knew. Teacher Xian Yi, you are the only one who can answer my question. However, what Xian Yi said, and just your calligraphy teacher, was like a bell, giving Aizen a deafening feeling, and he suddenly woke up and reacted. Ever since, Xian Yi sent off to Li Sao Suk again, thinking that the other party would not bother him every few days, and that he could be a little quieter. The next day, Sasuke came again. Seeing Sasuke coming here with a gift box, Zionai's eyes became even weirder. So, is it because my words are not straightforward enough? The other party didn't hear the hidden meaning in his words at all. When did Aizen Sasuke become an idiot who couldn't even understand what he was saying? Xian Yi was about to speak more frankly. Tell Sao Suk that if you have any questions, go and ask the teachers of your respective classes. Don't bother him, the calligraphy teacher, all the time. Just come and ask him once a month, not every few days. He doesn't attend classes so frequently. As a result, Sao Suk spoke first. After I went back yesterday, I thought about what Teacher Xian Yi said several times, and I think you are right, Teacher Xian Yi. You are just my calligraphy teacher. I shouldn't keep coming to you for advice if it's not necessary. So, Sao Suk said, raising the gift box in his hand above his head. Teacher Xian Yi, please accept me as your disciple. Aizen Sao Suk's attitude was sincere. As he spoke, he even knelt down towards Zionai. Looking at Sao Suk, who was kneeling in front of him and holding the gift box above his head, Zionai was also stunned. Of course, he understood Sao Suk. The meaning of Yusuk. In Zhenu Spiritual Arts Academy, he is a teacher, and Aizen is his student. But the relationship between teacher and student is completely different from the relationship between master and apprentice. The former is a school the teacher and student here, and the latter is the kind of private master-disciple relationship. The relationship is closer, and the mantle can be passed on. I know it's a bit abrupt and a bit presumptuous, but teacher Xian Yi, I really want to worship you as my master. No, in my heart, you are already my master. After all, you have answered so many of my questions for free. Sao Suk's title to Zionai also changed a bit, from teacher to master. Since the establishment of Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy, many souls with the talent of death have come to Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy to study and join the academy. In the middle, he became a Shinigami through the study of the academy. The traditional teaching method of one master and one apprentice, or one master and multiple apprentices, has long been eliminated. Many kendo and swordsmanship schools that once filled the Soul Society have also successively annihilation. Today, only some ancient nobles still maintain this kind of master-disciple relationship, with private teachers teaching noble children one-on-one. Unexpectedly, in the Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy, which was the first to initiate changes, Aizen Sao Suk picked up the tradition again and wanted to worship Zionai as his teacher. Zionai listened quietly to Sao Suk's words, and his expression suddenly became complicated. Of course, he understood what Sao Suk meant, although before Sao Suk also calls him teacher. But this is different from the relationship between master and apprentice. If he accepts Sao Suk Aizen as his disciple, the relationship between him and Sao Suk will be the same as that between Captain Yamamoto, Yukitake Jashiro, and Kairaku Shunsui is almost the same, which means that he regards Aizen Sao Suk as his successor and his successor. So, do you want to agree? Zionai's eyes flickered, and he began to think deeply. Aizen still knelt down. On the ground, he held his carefully selected apprenticeship gift above his head. He knew that his request was very presumptuous. But among the many teachers at Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy, Zainai was the only one who could answer his many questions. People. No, there are not necessarily many people in the Gotai 13 who can answer his question. Sao Suk is not stupid. Although he has not become a real Shinigami through various channels, through the mouse spirit, through self-study in the academy library, he learned enough about the Gotai 13 and the real Shinigami. Where did Mr. Senai come from? He didn't know why such a powerful being was willing to be a calligrapher. He didn't know the teacher in class, but he did feel kindness from Xian Yi. Since teacher Xian Yi was kind to him and could answer many of his questions, why couldn't his relationship with teacher Xian Yi go further? What? As a calligraphy class teacher, Mr. Zainai can't answer his own questions all the time. But what if he becomes his master? Can I always ask him questions? It can only be said that Aizen Syaosyuk has some he is utilitarian. But he really wants to worship Xianyi as his teacher. He also has enough respect and admiration for Xianyi. You get up first. Zainai came back to his senses and said to Sasuke, Teacher Xianyi. Syaosyuk raised his head and looked up at Xianyi. Zainai raised his hand, picked up the gift box that Syaosyuk held above his head, and then opened it to see clearly what was inside. His eyes flickered, its fishing gear. Syaosyuk was still kneeling on the ground, facing Zainai. He explained, I don't know what you like, teacher Xianyi, so I just... Because he didn't know what Zainai liked, and he happened to see fishing gear in Zainai's dormitory, Syaosyuk finally chose a fishing rod as his apprenticeship gift. He was not a wealthy man. Although it was just a piece of fishing gear, it did cost him what little money he had left. After listening to Syaosyuk's explanation, Zainai said to Syaosyuk, although the gift is not too expensive, I have already felt your feelings. I said, get up first. Xianyi emphasized this sentence again. At this point, if Syaosyuk still doesn't understand what Xianyi means, he would be too stupid. He quickly got up and called Xianyi, Master. Zainai nodded slightly and did not refute. With this attitude, he seemed to have agreed to accept Syaosyuk as his disciple. Chapter 18. Although after some consideration, Zainai chose to accept Syaosyuk as his disciple, he still had to give Syaosyuk the necessary warnings. As a result, Xianyi said the words that were not straightforward yesterday. That is, don't bother him every few days. 1 month, well, 1 month seems too long. Just once, every half a month is fine. After all, Sasuke has now become his master, and he has accepted Sasuke as his disciple. The teaching time is set after my calligraphy class. Anyway, Sasuke is also very interested in calligraphy. I will teach him calligraphy first, and then answer his many questions after class. This setting is very good. After hearing Zainai's words, Syaosyuk also realized why Mr. Zainai emphasized those words yesterday. No, now it should be said. It turns out that I come here for advice too often. The master was a little annoyed. However, Syaosyuk still has no regrets about taking Xianyi as his master. Among all the people he had met over the years, Xianyi was the first person who attracted his sincere respect and desire to learn from him. Xianyi agreed to accept him as his disciple, and he was sincerely happy. As for what Zainai said, he would be given guidance twice a month, and Syaosyuk readily agreed. After the apprenticeship was over, Zainai sent Syaosyuk out again. Syaosyuk didn't have too many questions today. He had already asked all his questions yesterday, and Xianyi also gave him answers. After Syaosyuk left, Zainai looked at the fishing gear sent by Syaosyuk again. It's rare to get new fishing gear, so it seems a bit unreasonable not to try it out. So Xianyi decisively took the fishing gear and left Mao. He came to the small river near the 13th Division and started fishing. Xianyi had gone fishing several times before, and he had gained something each time, so now he considers himself an experienced fisherman. However, this time, after fishing for a long time, I got nothing. It must be the fishing rod Sasuke sent me. Right, that is it. People tend to find reasons for their failures. Xianyi is also such a person. There was no air force in the previous times, but this time there was an air force. There must be a reason. Either there are no fish in the water, or there are other reasons. He has fished here before and caught fish, so if the former reason can be eliminated, it must be the latter. It just so happened that he tested the brand new fishing rod given by Sasuke Ikaben today as an apprenticeship gift. It is obviously the reason for this fishing rod. After figuring out the reason, Zayanai's mood immediately improved a lot. Anyway, as long as it was not his fault, it would be fine. In his heart, Sasuke couldn't help but label him as troublesome. Not only were there so many problems that bothered me so much, they even gave me a fishing rod that couldn't catch any fish. It seems that there is no harvest today, so I can only forget it. Xianyi comforted himself like this and was about to leave. At this moment, a frivolous voice sounded in his ears. Hey, isn't this teacher Xianyi, our calligraphy teacher at Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy? Are you fishing? Xianyi heard this and looked up. Sure enough, besides Kairyaku Shansui, who else could say such frivolous words? Chanshui, it's you. Why did you come here in your spare time? Jingraku Shansui's body flashed for a few times, and with the help of Shumpo, he came to Zayanai's side easily. I was going to visit Yucatec, but I didn't expect that Mr. Zayanai would actually fish here. While saying that, Jingraku Shansui swept the bucket that Su Zayanai placed next to him again. It was empty. Teacher Xian, he seems to have gained nothing. Xian. He was not angry. I brought the wrong fishing gear when I went out today. This fishing gear is not good, so I didn't harvest anything. Yeah, Jingraku Shansui didn't expect Zayanai to say such words seriously, and looked at Zayanai more and more playfully. Zayanai felt the gaze of Kairaku Shansui and emphasized one thing to Kairaku Shansui. Although it's true that I am now a teacher at Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy, but I have never taught you, so you don't need to call me teacher. Jingraku Shansui smiled and said, This is no good. No matter what, you are an old-timer. In the past, I could call you captain. Now that you have left the Gotai 13, it's hard to call you that anymore. As a captain, of course, you have to bring some honorifics. It's not easy to call you by your first name. Why not call him by his first name? Zayanai asked back to Jingraku Shansui. In the final analysis, a name is just a code name, so why should we add an honorific? Just like I call you Chanshui, you call me by my first name. This is a fair thing in itself. All you care about is that I am older than you. But you have neglected it. The life of the god of death itself is very long. When you and I can only live for 1,000 years, it may be a great thing that I am hundreds of years older than you. But if you and I can, even if you live for tens of thousands of years, hundreds of years are nothing. Jingraku Shansui was a little surprised when he heard Zayanai's words. So is this how you view the problem? As expected of a senior, his vision is indeed broad. However, if it lasts for 10,000 years, it is still unlikely. At least, as far as the Shinigami I know, there are very few who can serve as captains of the Gotai 13 for more than 100 years. For Shinigami, if they want to live a stable life, they have to. It's an extremely difficult thing. Zayanai remained silent and ignored Kairyaku Shansui's sigh. Kairaku Shansui turned to Zayanai again and said, Senior Zayanai, you didn't gain anything today anyway. Do you want to go visit Yucatec with me? When he was young, he admired you very much. Since Genya wouldn't let Kairaku Shunsui call him teacher, Kairaku Shunsui changed his words in a short time. He still didn't call Genya by his first name. This was also very disrespectful to the former Serete, a senior who has made great contributions. Therefore, the title of senior is very good. You could take. Zion Yi's eyes flickered, and he accepted Jingla Shunshui's invitation. Since you said so, it seems a little unreasonable if I don't go. Then Zainai put away his fishing gear and followed Yukatake Jutsuro toward the 13th Division. Chapter 19. The team building of the 13th Division is not far from this small river, and the captain's room is located on a bridge above the small river. This is an extremely exquisitely built pavilion called Yugan Hall. The front door of the hall is covered with a bamboo curtain. When you open the door, you can see the natural and delicate bamboos, grass, flower trees, and other trees planted on the river embankments on both sides. And around it, there are several places that are drawn by the water of the river. Pond. The place where Yugan Hall is located is like a small and exquisite garden. This was arranged spontaneously by the Shinigami of Division 13 for his captain. Yukatake Jashira and Kairaku Shunsui were among the first batch of Mao graduates to become captains. For Zainai, although he is a junior, for the current Shinigami of the Gotai 13, he is already a well-deserved veteran captain. He has very senior qualifications, but he does not rely on his old age and treats others in a harmonious manner. In front of him, many team members are like a spring breeze. If the only flaw is that it is probably that Yukatake Jashiro is not in good health. In order to take care of their captain and allow him to recuperate in peace, the members of the 13th Division arranged the Yugan Hall in an extremely exquisite manner. Not only can it make their captain's illness better, but at least staying in such an environment all day long will affect his body and mind. Be able to feel happy. Kairaku Shunsui often comes to visit Yukatake Jashiro. It can be said that he is very familiar with the 13th Division. He quickly brought Xianye to Yugan Hall. As soon as I opened the bamboo curtain, there was a coughing sound. Yukatake, I'm here to see you. Jingraku Shunsui increased the volume and greeted Yukatake Jashiro. In the room of Yukando, Yukatake Jashiro was lying on the tatami. After hearing this, he got up with difficulty and looked at him very weakly. Chun Shui, you're here. Yes, not only did I come to see you, but an old senior you once respected also came to see you with me. Yukatake Jashiro was puzzled at first, until he saw Zainai clearly next to Kairaku Shunsui. He was immediately excited. Lord Zainai. Yukatake Jashiro was about to stand up to greet Genya. Yukatake Jashiro was frail and sick when he was a boy, but even so, he still wanted to become a Shinigami. At that time, Genya was still in the Gotai 13 Corps. It was when he was most prosperous. As the captain of the 12th Division, in addition to promoting some reforms in the Serete and inventing many useful things, his strength was also top-notch. I don't know how many big invaders invaded the Soul Society. Su was beheaded by him. When Yukatake Jashiro was a boy, he was lucky enough to witness Zainai's grace in battle. From then on, he regarded Zainai as his idol. Perhaps because of his poor health, he became more and more eager to be like Zainai. Fighting. Later, with such a body, he graduated from Mao, became a Shinigami, and gradually became the captain. Unfortunately, after he became the captain, Zainai had already left the Gotai 13. Earlier, when Zainai returned, he had also fought with him once, but he didn't exchange too many greetings. Yukatake Jashiro didn't expect that Zainai and Kairaku Shunsui would come to visit him now that he was seriously ill. If you are not in good health, you don't need to be so polite. Zion hurriedly stepped forward, supported Yukitake Joshiro, spoke to him gently, and explained to Yukitake Joshiro, I happen to be fishing near here, and I heard from Chun Shui that you have been seriously ill recently, so I came with you. Have a look. As he said this, he emphasized to Yukitake Joshiro, by the way, there is no need to call me Lord. I am no longer a member of the Gotai 13. You can just call me Senpai like Shunsui. Yukitake Joshiro was ready to defend himself. Finally, facing Zionai's serious gaze, he said, "Okay, Senior Zionai." Zionai smiled warmly and then said to Yukitake Jutsuro, I knew that your health was very poor earlier, but I didn't expect that your health would be so bad. He gets sick every now and then, but it's hard to shoulder the responsibility of captain of the Gotai 13. Yukitake Joshiro showed a shameful expression. I am the one who dragged everyone down. If a good successor emerges, I wouldn't mind giving up the captain position. After all, I am not a responsible captain myself. Before Shianyi said anything, Jingraku Shunsui on the side took the lead in comforting Yukitake Joshiro. Yukitake, don't say that. In our minds, you are the most qualified and responsible captain. Although his body is weak, he always fulfills his duties as captain of the Gotai 13. On the contrary, I am a healthy person, but I always think about being lazy and do not take care of team affairs very seriously. It can only be said that he is indeed an old classmate and friend for many years. Kairaku Shunsui really knows Yukitake Joshiro very well, and with his comfort, Yukitake Joshiro's self-blaming mood has improved a lot. Xianyi suddenly spoke, interrupting the two men. If you don't mind, can you let me check your body? Yukitake. I know a little bit about the medical ghost path. Yukitake Joshiro and Kairaku Shunsui looked at Zionai at the same time, a little surprised. Finally, Yukitake Joshiro said with a happy face, Zionai-senpai is willing to help me check my body. Naturally, it couldn't be better. I wouldn't care. The same is true for Kairaku Shunsui. He knows very well how powerful Zionai is. Many years ago, when Zionai was the captain of the 12th Division of the Gotai 13th Division, he was a research expert in the field of spirit children. Now in Soul Society, many of the equipment used to detect and utilize spirit seeds were manufactured by Xian Yi in the past. Although Xian Yi did not show his medical capabilities at that time, Xian Yi had a strong and reliable image in the past. Has long been ingrained in the hearts of Kairaku Shunsui and Yukitake Joshiro. Seeing Kairaku Shunsui agreeing, Zionai was no longer polite. He raised his palm, but did not see what he said, only to see a green light appear in Zionai. In Yi's hands, this breath was full of the flavor of life. Yukitake Joshiro knew that this was the return path of the medical ghost path. In Zhenyang's Spiritual Arts Academy, all new students who enter the school will learn to break the path and bind the path. As everyone knows, besides these ghost paths, there is also a very special ghost path called the return path. The return path is completely different from the broken path and the bound path. It is a ghost path specially used for healing. It does not have the broken path. The powerful power of Hebudo used to deal with enemies, but it is more difficult to learn and master. Even among the fourth team, there are not many people who are proficient in returning to the way. More members of the fourth team heal the wounded still rely on their own Zanpakuto, which is related to medical treatment. Chapter 20. Although Hui Dao is a kind of ghost path, it does not require chanting, because it is different from the broken path and the bound path. Through the chanting of words, the spiritual power of the god of death spurts out and exerts various powerful powers. The return path is a healing ghost path. Its main purpose is to heal other people's injuries. So, how to treat it? This is the world of spirit children, and naturally they rely on spiritual power for treatment. In Soul Society, Huko Mundo, this world of spirit children, the spirit body will have the same body as the human beings in the real world. This body is not an ordinary flesh and blood body, but is made of spirit children. When the body constructed by the spirit seeds is damaged, new spirit seeds only need to be injected into the body in time to repair the damaged parts, and then it can be cured. Huidao is a kind of ghost path created based on such principles. Although the principle is very simple, it is difficult to learn. Because injecting one's own spiritual power into another person's body to repair their injuries requires very sophisticated spiritual power control capabilities. And during this process, the spiritual power of the person who returns to the path and the injured person's own spiritual power will also be produced. Conflict. This requires some means to resolve this conflict. But it has to be said that Korinji Tenshiro, who pioneered the way back in the past and even laid the foundation for the entire Soul Society's medical skills, is indeed an extraordinary being. It's a pity that most Shinigami are keen on fighting, and they all learn the Kaido for fighting and the Bindo to assist in combat. Few people learn the hidden way. Even now that the Shinigami profession has become regularized, except for the Shinigami of the 4th Division, there are also very few people in other divisions who have mastered the death control and returned to the path. Xianyi has been in the Zero Squadron for many years, and he is an expert in the field of spirit children. The reply was naturally not a difficult skill for him to master. With the help of the reply, he easily found out the situation inside Yukatake Joshiro's body. Very complicated. There were problems with Yukatake's internal organs. Under normal circumstances, Yukatake would have been dead. However, the fact is that although he is seriously ill, as long as he cultivates for a while and allows his internal organs to recover a little, he will basically be almost like a normal person. This is because there is an extremely special power in his internal organs. This power protects Yukatake Joshiro's lungs, suppresses diseases that could take away Yukatake's life, and maintains Yukatake's life. The one-eyed god, Mimihaki. Xianyi couldn't help but think of the original work. At the last moment, Yukatake Joshiro unlocked the power sealed in his body through the divine hexagram and dedicated everything he had to the one-eyed god. This power, it is not so much a one-eyed god. It is better to say, the right arm of the Soul King. It is the power of the Soul King that resides in Yukatake Joshiro's body and has been protecting him, making Yukatake Joshiro alive. But this life, there is a price. The power of the Soul King cannot completely cure Yukatake Joshiro. In other words, a simple right arm cannot. If it is a complete Soul King, it is naturally possible to cure Yukatake Joshiro. His right arm seems to have cured Yukatake Joshiro, but it only maintains Yukatake Joshiro's state when he is alive. Because its ability is stillness, the Soul King, as the cornerstone of the world in ancient times, in order to prevent the Soul King from escaping his destiny as the cornerstone of the world, the ancestors of the 5 nobles attacked the Soul King and dismembered him. The remains of many Soul Kings were scattered around the world. Among them, his left arm represents advance, and his right arm represents stillness. Let's not talk about the left arm for now. The right arm lives in Yukatake Joshiro's body. The way it saves Yukatake Joshiro is to use his own stillness to make Yukatake Joshiro's internal organs in the same state that he suffered from when he was a child. It was just a state of illness. At that time, Yukatake Joshiro was seriously ill and dying, but he was not completely dead after all. As Yukatake Joshiro grew up, his spiritual power gradually became stronger, which was a heavy burden for him as a child. The patient no longer has such a heavy burden, but at certain times, attacks will still occur and drag him down. Zayanai figured out the general condition of Yukitake Joshiro's body and was not in a hurry to treat Yukitake Joshiro. It is actually not difficult to temporarily relieve Yukitake Joshiro's illness by using the way of return. Even though the Spirit King's right arm's ability to remain still cannot completely cure his lung disease, it can still relieve Yukitake Joshiro's illness. It feels better. But what Zayanai is more curious about than these is the power of the Soul King. Except for Hell, which has been replaced and suppressed by Soul Society, the three realms now, namely Soul Society, Huko Mundo, and the real world, are all it was developed because of the power of the Soul King. The Soul King maintains the existence of the entire world. The power of the Soul King is beyond all spiritual power. When he was in the Zero Division, Zayanai once received the power of the Soul King into his body. The King Key was created. Later, after leaving the Zero Division, the power of the Soul King was deprived of him, but after all, he had it. He also researched the power of the Soul King. The more he studied, the more curious he became about the existence of the Soul King itself. When that greed sprang out, it could no longer be contained. For this reason, Zayanai submitted his resignation to the Zero Division and chose to retire. Because at that time, he was no longer suitable to be a royal agent. He has assumed the responsibility of guarding the Soul King. He is afraid that if he continues to stay in the Soul King Palace, sooner or later he will be unable to help but attack the Soul King, and then turn against the other Zero Division members. But in this Serete, since given the opportunity to peek at the power of the Soul King again, and without having to worry about destroying the stability of the world, Zayanai would not miss this opportunity. While checking the body of Yukitake Joshiro, he continued to use his own methods to peek at Feng. The existence of the Soul King's right arm exists in Yukitake Joshiro's body. This power is hidden in Yukitake Joshiro's lungs and is in a deep sleep state. When Xian Yi's power touched the right arm of the Spirit King, this power was suddenly awakened. In an instant, Jutsuro Yukitake's face turned extremely pale, and cold sweat broke out. He suffered unspeakable pain. Oh. A painful sound came from his mouth. Kairu Shunsui's expression immediately changed. Yukitake. He was very worried about his old friend's condition. Chapter 21. When Zayanai saw that he had disturbed the power of the Spirit King's right arm residing in Yukitake Jutsuro's body, putting Yukitake Joshiro in a state of pain, he immediately stopped and then began to truly use his return path to treat Yukitake Juju. Shiro's body, relieving his pain. Sure enough, not long after he used the return treatment, Yukitake Joshiro's condition quickly improved. The pain lasted for a while, and then subsided. In this short moment, Yukitake Joshiro was already soaked with sweat. Fortunately, he also felt a sense of relief at this moment. Looking at Kairaku Shunsui, who looked worried next to him, Yukitake Joshiro said gently, "Shunsui, I'm fine." Whether someone is fine or not can be seen from a person's state. Kairaku Shunsui saw a sense of relief from Yukitake Joshiro and immediately confirmed that Yukitake was really fine. Senior Zayanai is really awesome. After confirming that Yukitake Joshiro was in good condition, Kairaku Shunsui looked at Zayanai and praised Zayanai. Zayanai's expression was calm, and he didn't say much. When Kairaku Shunsui saw this, he didn't doubt too much and just thought Yukitake was in such pain before because it would have occurred during the treatment process. Zayanai looked at Yukitake Joshiro and said, "Your body is indeed in bad shape. My treatment can only temporarily relieve your pain. If you are willing, I can help you treat it every once in a while. I won't say that you can completely cure your disease, but at least it can reduce the frequency of your attacks. Jinraku Shunsui looked at Zayanai in surprise. Yukatake Joshiro did not hesitate much and quickly said to Zayanai, "Senior Zayanai is willing to help me treat my illness." Of course, I agree. When he was a boy, he had great respect for the senior in front of him. Now, with close contact, he felt the kindness of this senior and suddenly became more fond of him. What a reliable senior. What he didn't know was that what was thinking in Xian Yi's mind was oversight. After all, I came to visit Yucatec in a hurry without making much preparation. When you are ready next time, see if you can get a glimpse of some of the reality of the Spirit King's right arm. Rather than curing Yucatec Jashiro's disease, Zayanai is more interested in the Soul King's right arm residing in Yucatec Jashiro's body. Of course, this does not mean that he will choose to harm Yucatec Jashiro for the sake of the Soul King's right arm. Everything is based on the premise of preserving the life of Yucatec Jashiro and ensuring that Yucatec Jashiro is fine. If the true and full strength of the Soul King's right arm in Yucatec Jashiro's body can be analyzed, Yucatec Jashiro may be able to be completely cured. Maybe it will be good, because the power of the Spirit King's right arm is still. Therefore, the disease in Yucatec Jashiro's body will always remain in the same state as when he was a child and will not worsen, because deterioration is a trend of progress, and it will not healing, because healing restores health if you have to retreat. The power of the Soul King's right arm is extremely powerful, and it is a power of rules. Simple medical skills cannot break this rule. Therefore, although Yucatec can be relieved by returning to the path, Jashiro's pain is also a means to treat the symptoms rather than the root cause. On the contrary, if Zayanai really analyzes the power of the rule of stillness, then he can temporarily free the lungs in Yucatec Jashiro's body from this bound by rules. In the past, medical methods could not cure Yucatec Jashiro's disease, but current medical skills may not. Yucatec Jashiro was sweating profusely, and his clothes were soaked due to Zayanai's treatment, so he was naturally not suitable. Waiting for guests again. Fortunately, Yucatec usually lives here most of the time to recuperate. There is no difference between here and home. With the support of Kairaku Shunsui, Yucatec Jashiro went to clean it. After a while, he changed a pair of clothes. Although he is still weak, he is now able to move, and his condition is much better than lying on the tatami looking desperately ill. In order to celebrate the improvement of his health and to express his gratitude to Zayanai, Yucatec Jashiro is in the Rain Genya and Kairyaku Shunsui were warmly entertained in the main hall. Since it was a reception, there was naturally wine. Of course, Yucatec Jashiro couldn't drink, so he used tea instead of wine, and he also chatted with Kairaku Shunsui and Kairaku Shunsui. Extremely enjoyable. Life in Serete is dull and boring. Even if he accepts Sasuke Aizen as his disciple, and even if he is given the task of treating Yucatec Jusuke out of curiosity about the right arm of the Spirit King in Yucatec Jashiro, Genya's life in the Serete does not have much change. In addition to giving lectures twice a month and answering some of Saosuke's questions after class, he spent most of his time like a retiree, looking for some leisure activities all day long. Although he teaches twice a month, Aizen Sasuke always has some weird questions, which fully demonstrates his curiosity about the world and his strong curiosity. But at this stage, Zayanai can still easily answer some of Saosuke Aizen's questions. Of course, Xian Yi was also very measured when answering questions. He chose to keep certain secrets and did not tell Sasuke Aizen about them. Of course he knew that such a move would not make Sasuke give up exploring these secrets, but would actually stimulate his thirst for knowledge, but he still did it. Because there are some secrets, it is better for Aizen not to know at this stage. After his strength reaches a certain level, some things will naturally become known. In the final analysis, if you want to know the truth of the world, you need matching strength. Aizen's future achievements will naturally be impressive. But now it's too immature. It was also the time when Xian Yi was enjoying life in Serete with peace of mind. Among the Gotai 13, the name of a strong man also echoed throughout the Gotai 13. Kayashiki Kenpachi. This is the name of the seventh generation Kenpachi. As a strong man who could defeat his predecessor Kenpachi and ascend to the position of Kenpachi, Kariashiki Kenpachi's strength is naturally extraordinary. However, in the past, the Shinigami of the Gotai 13 only knew that Kenpachi Kariashiki was very strong, but they had never experienced his power personally. Until a war when Huko Mundo invaded Soul Society, he effortlessly killed an extremely powerful Daxu. This is not Killian nor Achiuka's, but Huko Mundo's top Daxu Vastod. In this battle, the 11th Division led by Kariashiki Kenpachi became famous. Kariashiki Kenpachi is also completely famous in Soul Society. Chapter 22. Daxu is an extremely extraordinary existence among the emptiness. Among them, the Killian-level Daxu, although he is confused and only has one instinct, the powerful spiritual pressure given by his powerful body cannot be defeated by ordinary Shinigami. A god of death who can defeat Killian must at least have the strength of a chief officer. The Achukas further up are even more powerful. After Killian evolves to Achukas, their size will shrink, but the reduced size does not affect their strength, but makes them even more powerful. It's agile and quick, and its spiritual pressure has been solidified due to its reduced size, and its quality has actually gone up to a higher level. In terms of strength, a Daxu of this level can actually compete with the vice-captain and the average strength captain. As for the highest level Great Hollows, Vastod, there are only a few such hollows in a world as vast as Huko Mundo. Without exception, they all possess super captain level strength. Of course, this may be a bit of a boast. After all, the Shinigami has his biggest trump card, the Zanpakuto, compared to Hollow. Without using the Zanpakuto, Daxu can naturally compete with the Shinigami by relying solely on his powerful body and powerful spiritual pressure. But if a captain-level Shinigami uses his swastika, it will be another matter. Situation. Swastika is the captain's most powerful method. However, even so, in the long years of Soul Society, since the establishment of the Gotai 13, there have been many captain-level beings who died at the hands of Daxu. Every Daxu who appears in Soul Society must be taken seriously by the Gotai 13. The captain of the 11th Division, Kenpachi Kariashiki, easily killed the Wastod-level Daxu in a head-to-head confrontation. It is not surprising that his reputation has become famous because of this. Combined with the performance of Kenpachi Kariashiki in the past, the dazzling achievements gradually spread in the Soul Society. There is another saying about Kenpachi, which is called, "One ride is worth 1,000," which means that he alone can withstand the existence of thousands of Shinigami. He is even said to be the strongest Kenpachi in history. Of course, this statement was quickly despised by those around him. Needless to say, Kariashiki Kenpachi is the strongest Kenpachi in history. After all, the name Kenpachi is different from the other captains of the Gotai 13. It was obtained through fighting and dueling. Only by defeating the predecessor Kenpachi can one become the new Kenpachi. Therefore, every Kenpachi will be more powerful than the previous Kenpachi. This may not be the case. Zayanai, who lived a leisurely life in the Serete, naturally heard this statement. He did not agree with the fact that Kariashiki Kenpachi was the strongest Kenpachi. It is true that all the Kenpachi before him, where he was defeated by the stronger ones later, and lost the name of Kenpachi. But one Kenpachi was an exception. She gave up the name of Kenpachi herself. She is the current captain of the 4th Division, Anohana Ritsu. But this Kayashiki Kenpachi is indeed a hero. Zainai praised Karyashiki Kenpachi. Although he did not agree that the other person was the most powerful Kenpachi in history, he did agree with his strength. He returned to the Mao Spiritual Arts Academy and lived a peaceful life again. This after Tian's calligraphy class, Sao Xiuk came to him again to ask questions. After answering Sao Xiuk's questions, Zainai asked Sao Xiuk, "If I remember correctly, you should graduate soon. Think about graduation. Which division did you join after that?" Yes, after Zainai accepted Sao Xiuk as his disciple, time actually passed not a few months, but 2 years. For an immortal species like the Death God, there is not much time that passes by. Concept, because their growth cycle is so slow that they may even spend decades in the state of children. Their decades are almost the same as human years. In this case, the courses at Zhenu Spiritual Arts Academy only lasted for 6 years, but they seemed out of place. Sao Xiuk's appearance did not change much from before. After hearing Zainai's question, he thought for a while and said, If I want to understand the mysteries of this world, logically speaking, the most suitable division for me is Division 12. But recently, I heard about Karyashiki Kenpachi killing the Vastod-level Daxu alone, and I want to join the 11th Division and become a combatant. Therefore, which division to join is really a tangled matter. After more than 2 years of getting along, the relationship between Sao Xiuk and Zainai has become more and more familiar and close. He also knows his master's character very well. Although his master is only a calligraphy teacher at Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy, he has what he has mastered is definitely something that ordinary calligraphy class teachers can master. He is powerful, wise, and seems to know everything. He can give him guidance in all fields related to the god of death. In Aizen Sao Xiuk's mind, the master is simply he is the best mentor. However, you have already thought about it after all, right? Zainai's eyes fell on Sao Xiuk's face. Yes. Sao Xiuk nodded and said, I'm going to join the 5th team. Division 5, the rescue team. Zainai knows the Gotai 13th Division very well. After learning about the division that Sao Xiuk wanted to join, he was not surprised because the original Sao Xiuk Aizen was a member of the 5th Division. Sao Xiuk said to Zainai explained, although the 5th Squadron is not a frontline combat squad like the 11th Squadron, as a rescue team, its duty is to provide timely support to other squad members after they encounter danger. Rescue, so in this squad, there are not many combat missions. I think it suits me very well. As for research, even if you don't join the 12th Division, you should still be able to do it. Zainai nodded silently. Since you have made plans, I won't what to say. Sao Xiuk smiled. Although he often asks Zainai for advice, as a genius, he also has the ability to think independently. In other words, he is actually a very independent person. The annual the graduation season of the Spiritual Arts Academy has arrived, and the Gotai 13 teams have each sent their team members to the Mao Spiritual Arts Academy to recruit members. Aizen Sasuk joined the 5th team as he wished. Zainai didn't have many feelings. In this case, he went to the 13th Division's team building, Ugando, and continued to treat Yukatake Joshiro. Chapter 23. More than 2 years have passed since he first treated Yukatake Joshiro. Each cycle of Zainai's treatment for Yukatake Joshiro lasted for several months. He came here specifically to treat Yukatake Joshiro when his disease recurred. Speaking carefully, it was really not easy for Yukatake Joshiro. Although because of the Spirit King's right arm, his life was saved, and he did not die at the age of 3. But the Soul King's right arm did not cure him, but used the power of stillness, contained in the right arm itself, to maintain the disease in his body in a state where it could not be cured or worsened. Although it is a disease, apart from the onset of illness, there are occasionally times when the condition is relatively good. This resulted in Yukitake Joshiro getting sick every few months, and then he needed to rest on the bed for more than a month. Even though Joshiro Yukitake has now become the captain of the Gotai 13 and is considered a strong one among the captains, he still has no way to cure the disease in his body. Because this is the power of the rule system, not an ordinary illness. When the power of the Soul King's right arm wrapped around Yukitake Joshiro's lungs, his lungs had become part of the still power of the Soul King's right arm. In the past 2 years, Xianyi gradually figured out the reality of King Ling's right arm. This power is sleeping in Joshiro Yukitake's lungs and is in a sealed state. However, if the necessary moment comes, Joshiro Yukitake can choose to unlock the seal and dedicate everything he has to the Soul King's right arm. Become its incarnation. At that time, Yukitake Joshiro will no longer be himself, but will become the Spirit King. Of course, because it only has one right arm, it is not a complete spiritual king, but it still has the ability to serve as the cornerstone of the world and support it. In the past 2 years, Zainai has made many attempts to steal the power of the Spirit King's right arm in Yukitake Joshiro's body. Even if it is only part of it, this part is still the Spirit King's power. The power contained in the Soul King's body is completely different from the power of the Soul King that was injected into his body when he was in the Zero Division. Xianyi has already had his own experience with the power of the Spirit King. It is indeed an extremely powerful force that can surpass all spiritual powers. It is the original power of the world. It is precisely because of the existence of this power, has just supported the existence of this world. But part of the Spirit King's body is even more mysterious. In addition to the Spirit King's power, there are also various strange powers that can be called rules. For example, its left arm represents forward. That is, the power of evolution, while its right arm represents the power of stillness. While constantly secretly studying the right arm of the Spirit King in Yukitake Joshiro's body, Zainai couldn't help but make some guesses. For example, in the original work, the fragment of the Soul King that Aizen used to create the Hongyoku, that is, the Soul King's fingertips that were stripped from Rangaku Matsumoto's soul, probably came from the Soul King's left arm. The left arm of the Spirit King represents the power of forward and has infinite possibilities for evolution. One of the great functions of Bengyu is that it allows people to evolve infinitely. If it were just the power of the fingertips, even if it came from the right arm, it would naturally not be able to reach that level. However, in the process of making Bengyoku, countless souls of Shinigami and Hollows were put into it by Aizen, and a large number of them were produced. The aggregation of souls, coupled with the power of the Spirit King's fingertips, was enough to push this originally weak evolutionary force to an incredible level. Since the fingertips of the Soul King, representing evolution on the left arm, can create Bengyu. So, can you try to extract some power from the Soul King's right arm, which represents the stillness? In the past 2 years, Xianyi made many attempts, but unfortunately, the Soul King's right arm was tightly inhabited in Yukitake Joshiro's lungs, and he could not shake it at all. For this reason, he thought about trying to develop a new ghost path. Use ghost methods to reach the power of the Spirit King. Although it is a very difficult thing, for Xianyi, who has retired, it is still something that makes him extremely interested. As a Shinigami who once joined the Zero Division and then retired from the Zero Division. Although privately, Xianyi regarded himself as a mediocre person, in the eyes of others, he was not a mediocre person, but a true genius. In 2 years, Zainai successfully developed a new ghost path. In the process of using Huidao to help Yuka take Joshiro's treatment, Zainai secretly used his newly developed Kidao. In an instant, a translucent light film appeared in his hand. With the help of this light film, Zainai Yi's arm directly penetrated Yukatake Joshiro's body. Because of this suggestion, during the night treatment. So during the treatment process, Yukatake Joshiro always closed his eyes and let Zainai do what he did. After his arm penetrated Yukatake Joshiro's body, Zainai's hand touched Yukatake Joshiro's lungs, and then an extremely powerful force surged out from it, instantly repelling his palm. It is as if the lungs belong to its territory, and no existence is allowed to come and covet it. While this process was going on, Yukatake Joshiro also noticed the changes in his body and suddenly opened his eyes. Immediately, he saw the scene of Xianyi's arms reaching into his body. I regarded you as a senior, but you ripped out my heart. Although Yukatake Joshiro didn't complain, this scene was indeed a bit scary. Xianyi felt Yukatake Joshiro's gaze, and Shishiren retracted his arm. After retracting his arm, Yukatake Joshiro didn't have any wounds on his body, and he didn't feel any pain. Xianyi explained to him, in order to cure your problem, during this period of time, I have tried to develop a new ghost path to check the true condition of your lungs. So that's it. Yukatake Joshiro was not surprised. He was not shocked that Zainai was able to develop a new ghost path. After all, he is Zainai Senior, so developing a new ghost path is not a difficult task for him. What about my body? Yukatake Joshiro asked Zainai. Zainai said, your physical condition is very complicated, but I already have some clues. If you can give me some more time, maybe I can try to cure you. Then it will be troublesome for senior Xianyi. After 2 years of treatment, Yukatake Joshiro has believed in Zainai wholeheartedly. Zainai didn't say much. Although he still couldn't win the power of the Soul King's right arm, he could touch that power. This is good news. Then he used the reply to temporarily help Yukatake Joshiro relieve the pain caused by the disease. Chapter 24. Since Saosyuk graduated from Zhenu Spiritual Arts Academy, although Zainai still has 2 classes every month, he no longer needs to help Saosyuk answer questions after class. This is certainly not because Saosyuk no longer recognizes him as his master. But after joining the Gotai 13 and becoming a real Shinigami, Sasuke Aizen is very busy now. This is how Shinigami just joined the job. There are always endless tasks to complete. Of course, this task is not difficult. That is, so that he can adapt to the rhythm of the Gotai 13 as quickly as possible. But after he became the chief officer, he had not many tasks. But the task facing the chief executive is of another level of difficulty and is even more dangerous. This is also the reason why the higher the level of Shinigami among the Gotai 13, the higher the casualty rate. Zainai's lectures to Saosyuk have become once a month. As for the time, it's uncertain. Zainai did have time, but it was unclear whether Saosyuk had time. Xianyi didn't pay much attention. He knew that Aizen Saosyuk was a person with his own ideas. On the surface, he looks extremely humble, but in his heart, his curiosity about all things has been pushing him forward. In addition, his talent is extremely powerful, and he can easily achieve things that ordinary Shinigami can't. The height of... At this time, Aizen was okay, because he had just become a Shinigami, so he was still in awe of many things. But if one day Aizen found that everyone around him was mediocre, his views might change. But even if Aizen changed, Zainai didn't care. At least for a long time, Aizen couldn't surpass him. He was still the master. But in order not to be surpassed by his apprentice, he must also work hard. At first, Xianyi wanted to be open. After all, he was retired. However, by chance, he accepted Aizen as his apprentice. In order not to be surpassed by his apprentice, this old guy can only live one more life and continue to work hard. As far as the god of death is concerned, he has actually reached the pinnacle. But if you want to truly dominate the world, this is not enough. There are still many forces worth studying in this world. The power of the Hollow, who is like the god of death, and the power of the Quincy. However, the Quincy originated from the Soul King. If one can thoroughly study the power of the Soul King, there is no need to study the power of the Quincy. Developing a new ghost path. Facts have proved that my research direction is correct. I successfully touched the right arm of the Soul King in Yucate's body. So how to cut off and deprive the Soul King's right arm? Although in ancient times, the ancestors of the 5 great nobles dismembered the Spirit King. Now the Spirit King has lost his limbs and all internal organs, and is almost like a human stick. Only the balance power that maintains the stability of the world is left. But this does not mean that ordinary means can cut the Spirit King apart. Continue to develop new ghost roads. Kaido is one of the powers belonging to the Shinigami, created by Ikaibai of the Higher Chobube. It is a manifestation of the power of Ippei's true name, and it is attached to the cornerstone of the world, the Soul King. It belongs to the power of rules created by Ikaibai of the military headquarters. This power is the same as the power of rules created by the rest of the Zero Division. It is to maintain the stability of the Soul King and the stability of this world. It is difficult to rely on this power to harm the Spirit King himself. So, is there any other power different from the Ghost Realm that can harm the Spirit King? Xianyi kept thinking in his small dormitory. There were many stumps and fragments of the Spirit King in Mo Kan's original work, but those were scattered from the beginning. After these stumps and fragments were scattered around the world everywhere, after being mixed into the cycle of spirit suns, and then appearing in the bodies of many souls through the cycle, what did the fragments of the Spirit King in these soul bodies look like at first, and what they still look like after? They have the property of being indestructible. Similarly, it is difficult to stick these fragments together. Of course, if enough fragments are gathered, it is still possible to reproduce part of the great power of the Spirit King in the past. Only the same level of power can harm the Spirit King. In the original work, Ichigo Kurosaki was able to hurt and kill the Soul King because he was able to come to the Soul King's palace and was guided by the Soul King's will. Maybe the Soul King himself had had enough. That kind of state of immortality, so let Ichigo Kurosaki give him relief. Ichigo Kurosaki himself is also one of the perfect substitutes for the Soul King. Whether he can defeat Iwatch or not, in his the power of death, Quincy, and Hollow is gathered in his body. The essence of his power is infinitely close to that of the Spirit King. He can serve as the Spirit King to maintain the balance of the world. Although Xianyi's power is strong enough, he is not without the power of the Spirit King. The simple power of death cannot defeat the Spirit King's power. But in the end, he still thought of a solution. If we could figure out the reality of that power, we might be able to peel off the Spirit King's power. In ancient times, when the ancestors of the 5 great nobles dismembered the Spirit King, it was not because they had powerful power over the Spirit King, nor was it because their power level was the same as the Spirit King. It was because they had the help of something. With the help of the artifact. Zainai once went to the Zero Division. Before joining the Zero Division, he was also the death god of the 12th Division. He knows many secrets of this world. Ordinary people don't know that artifact. But he knew what it was. In the past, the weapons used by the ancestors of the 5 nobles to divide the Spirit King were made by the Aizen family, a Shinto family that was different from the five nobles. Today, the Ise family has declined, but if no accident happened, the sword should still be in their hands. So, how to find the Ise family members? In the room, Xian Yi's eyes flickered, regarding the plot of the original work, and his thoughts slowly flowed through his mind. The next day, in the tavern, Xian Yi looked at Kairaku Shunsui, who was wearing a blanket in front of him, and asked casually, "Chun Shui, I heard that you have a sister-in-law." Kingraku Shunsui was slightly lost in thought when he heard this, and then nodded. This matter is actually not a secret among the nobles. The Kairaku family is a higher-level noble, and among the many nobles in the Soul Society, it is the only one second to several nobles. Kairaku Shunsui was once just the second son of the family, and the heir to the Kairaku family was his elder brother. Many nobles naturally knew about such a big thing as his brother's marriage. Unfortunately, later, something happened. His brother died, and the position of head of the Kairaku family fell into his hands. Chapter 25. Thinking about it carefully, it has been several years since my brother died. Kairaku Shunsui couldn't help but think like this after Zayanai mentioned sister-in-law. When he was a teenager, his relationship with his brother was not very good. Although he is a member of the Kairaku family, he is free and uninhibited, extremely dissolute, and is a prodigal son, while his elder brother is stable and mature, and is a very traditional descendant of the aristocracy. Because of their different personalities, the relationship between him and his brother was very poor, and he rarely went home. This was until his brother married his sister-in-law. The eldest sister-in-law is a descendant of the Ise family, a Shinto family. The Ise family is a matrilineal family. According to records, all the newborns in the family are female. In order to continue the bloodline, they can only recruit sons-in-law from outside. Every man who enters the Ise family will die young due to the family's curse. Logically speaking, in this situation, the elder brother cannot get together with the elder sister-in-law. After all, the elder brother is the head of the Jingraku family, so it is impossible for him to marry into the family. But love itself is a force that is incomprehensible. In order to avoid embarrassment to her brother, the sister-in-law violated the family's ancestral precepts and chose to marry into the Jingraku family instead of allowing her brother to marry into the family. After her marriage, she moved to Kairiaku's house. I originally had a bad relationship with my brother, but because of my gentle sister-in-law, my relationship with my brother has eased. However, the good times did not last long. Even if the sister-in-law violated the family's ancestral precepts, and even if the brother did not marry into the family, the curse that enveloped the Ise family still followed. The elder brother died in the end. After his brother died, his sister-in-law was sent back to her natal family due to the rule that aristocratic women were not allowed to interact with her husband's family after his death. From then on, Kairaku Shunsui became the head of the Kairaku family. But he was not happy. Because my brother died, and because my sister-in-law left. He didn't expect to hear Xian Yi mention sister-in-law today. After a moment of trance, Jingraku Shunsui did not hide anything and said to Zayanai, "My sister-in-law has been sent back to her parents' home after my brother died. To be honest, I haven't seen her for a long time. I don't know how she is doing now. Do you want to go and meet me?" Zayanai said to Jingraku Shunsui. Jingraku Shunsui frowned slightly. "Senior Zayanai mentioned my sister-in-law for no reason. What do you want to do?" He was wary of Xian Yi. Of course, Xian Yi knew that Jingraku Shunsui cared about his sister-in-law, so he did not hide his purpose. Of course, he still kept a part of it. The Ise family is a Shinto family that has been passed down from generation to generation. When it comes to the long history of the family, it is not inferior to the 5 major nobles today. I am very interested in the Issei family. To be precise, I am very touched by the curse of the Issei family. Interest. What kind of curse is it that causes the Issei family to only give birth to women in each generation, and all men who marry or marry Issei family women will die young? It's as if there is a force in the dark that wants to completely cut off the Issei family's bloodline. Who does this power come from? We are called the god of death, but we cannot even control our own destiny. Or is there a true god in this world? Can you affect our destiny? Xianyi talked eloquently and said some extremely mysterious words. Although Jingraku Shunsui knew a lot of things, he really couldn't understand what Xianyi said later. There was no way, after all, the realms he was in were different. Xianyi served as the captain of the 12th Division many years ago. As we all know, those who can serve as the captain of the 12th Division are not ordinary people. They all have extremely thorough research on the world. Only in this way can we able to invent all kinds of novel things. In addition, Zayanai was promoted there for a time. Although Kairaku Shunsui knew about it, he did not know the specific situation there. What Zayanai experienced there, and why he gave up as a member there, he returned to the Seirete and was unknown. But Kairaku Shunsui still understood what Zayanai said before. That is, Zayanai knew the Issei family very well and the curse of the Issei family. Very interested. Can Senai-senpai break the curse of the Issei family? There was a hint of excitement in Kairaku Shunsui's tone. Zayanai looked calm. Whether I can break the Issei family's curse will have to wait until I figure out the cause of the curse. So, can you take me to meet your sister-in-law? Zayanai asked Jingraku Shunsui again. Jingraku Shunsui's brows were still in a state of concentration. He did not answer the question directly, but asked Zayanai again. Why did senior Zayanai suddenly become interested in curses? Xianyi's eyes suddenly became deep, and he stared at Kairaku Shunsui for a while. Kairaku Shunsui suddenly felt a little hairy. He is the captain of the 8th Division, and he is already at the top of the Seirete. One of the existences. But being stared at by Xianyi like this still felt uncomfortable. Xianyi withdrew his gaze and spoke quietly. Don't you think there are too many secrets in this world? When these secrets are placed in front of you, you will always want to explore the truth of the world and the reasons for these secrets. Is that so? Jingraku Shunshui's brows widened and he asked Zayanai. So, is this the reason why you left there, Zayanai-senpai? Zayanai did not answer this last question. Jingraku Shunsui continued to think deeply. I can take you to meet your sister-in-law. After a long time, he gave Zayanai the answer. Kairaku Shunsui finally chose to believe Zayanai. If Zayanai was a bad person, it should be impossible for him to leave that place calmly, or in other words, it would be impossible to be promoted there in the first place. In addition, the main reason is the curse of the Issei family. Because of this curse, his brother died. But the curse still exists. If nothing unexpected happens, it will continue to the next generation and his. His niece was only so young. When he thought that his niece might be burdened with a curse in the future, and the man he loved might die, Kairaku Shunsui felt a bit of pity and intolerance. If possible, he would naturally want to remove her. The curse of the powerful family. Not only will the niece live a better life in the future, but the sister-in-law will also feel better. Chapter 26. The location of the Issei family is not in Seirete, but in Rukungai. The history of the Seirete actually doesn't exist for many years. At that time, a towering wall was built with murderous stones to encircle the central area of Seoul society, in order to separate the Shinigami from ordinary souls. After the Seirete was established, many nobles moved into it one after another. But there are also some families who did not choose to move into Seirete, but still live in Rukungai. The Issei family is one of them. The Issei family is an extremely ancient Shinto family. In terms of status, it can also be regarded as a noble family. It is even a very special family. However, this family has a small number of people. They have been women for generations, and because they have always chosen to recruit men as their wives, among them, there has never been a case of marrying out, so this family is extremely mysterious. Kairaku Shunsui's sister-in-law chose to marry far away to the Kairaku family, which can be said to have broken the tradition of this family. She is a strange woman. Unfortunately, even if she married into the Kairaku family and left the Issei family, the curse still hung over her like a shadow. Kairaku Shunsui's eldest brother died, just like the men who married into the Issei family in the past. She also had to be sent back to her natal family because of the aristocratic tradition. Zainai left the Seirete with Kairaku Shunsui, and then used Shumpo to walk a long distance in Rukungai before arriving at the Issei family. Seirete is already very big. For a soul without spiritual power and who does not know Shumpo, it would take dozens of days to walk around. However, compared to Soul Society, Seirete is the area occupied by Ting is only a small part of it. Rukungai is the area where most souls in Soul Society live. It is divided into 4 major areas: southeast, southeast, and northwest. Each area has 80 districts from 1 to 80, totaling 320. Area. Although the Issei family did not choose to come to Seirete, the area they lived in was at the forefront of Rukungai. After all, the area at the back of Rukungai is too simple, both in terms of the resources needed for life and the folk customs. The Issei family is located in a large place with an extremely ancient style. From a distance, it looks more like a shrine than a family. Considering the understanding of the Issei family, such an architectural style is not surprising. Under the leadership of Jingraku Shunsui, Zainai stepped into the Issei family. There are few people in the family. Soon, a gentle-looking woman came to Kairaku Shunsui. The woman's appearance is not absolutely beautiful, but she is very delicate and gentle. She stands there quietly, giving people a sense of tranquility, which can make people feel relaxed involuntarily. No wonder Kairaku Shunsui, who had a bad relationship with his brother back then, repaired the relationship with his brother because of him. Judging from the appearance, he is indeed a gentle person. Sister-in-law. After seeing the woman, Jingraku Shunshui's expression was a little complicated. If possible, he would like his sister-in-law to stay at Jingraku's house. However, due to the tradition of the aristocracy, he could only bear the pain and send his sister-in-law back to her parents' home. Jingraku.